So today we have another Final Fantasy VII Rebirth interview, this time with the man behind the very boisterous and passionate Barret Wallace, John Eric Bentley. He talks about the journey that Barret's going on in Rebirth, how they're really going to dive deep into his backstory, and he also teases some of the interactions that he's going to have with the rest of the party members, namely Red 13, which sounds really fun. So if any of that sounds cool to you, feel free to click the like button, and if you're new here and you'd like to stick around, you can subscribe. It is always appreciated. So John might be one of the most positive and genuine, kind-hearted people I think I've ever seen. If you've ever watched an interview with him or read an interview from him, he's just super passionate about this character. He's always very motivational and he's uplifting the people around him. And he's always willing to drop a little nugget of wisdom for those willing to listen. So he seems like a genuinely stand-up guy, and he is a fan of the original FF7. He played the original back when it came out. So he's very familiar with this cast and the journey they're going to go on, and kind of the ins and outs of his own character. Now, just a heads up, we have talked about Barret quite a bit in previous videos, so there might be some overlap here in this interview, but I'll try my best not to repeat myself too much. So this interview comes to us directly from Square Enix, where they sat down with John to talk all things Barret, especially his journey in Rebirth. So starting off first, they ask John how familiar was he with Final Fantasy VII before he got the role of Barret. John responds by saying, "Oh, very, because I played the original. I'm playing the game and I'm like, oh, there's a black character. This is awesome. I've never seen a black character in an RPG. And then I'm like, oh, surely he's about to die. And he didn't. And I'm like, oh, I'm hooked." And that right there is kind of John to a T. He's a very funny guy, super energetic and passionate, and very familiar with this universe. And if I remember correctly, I think Barret was the first playable black character in Final Fantasy as a franchise, which was pretty big. And he would go on to become such an iconic character, as well as the rest of the cast, that if you showed people a silhouette of Barret or Cloud or Tifa, people would be able to tell you who those characters are. So they've had such a massive impact on pop culture and gaming, and really kind of inspired a lot of characters that came afterwards, I would say. And to that last line, there's obviously that trope in some video games, but mostly horror films, where if there's a black character involved, they're usually the first to die. But in Barret's case, he survived and would go on to have a pretty impactful story in 7 and have probably one of the more tragic backstories of all the cast members, which is probably pretty big to say because 7 in particular just has such tragedy with their characters and their backstories, but Barret's is one of those ones that really sticks out because a lot of what he goes through just comes from a place where he was being so genuine and just wanted to do the right thing, and everything just blew up in his face, and he faced a lot of repercussions because of that. Up next, they ask John what defines his portrayal of Barret. John responds by saying, "I wanted to make sure that when I portrayed Barret, he wasn't a caricature. I just didn't want that to happen for the sake of my culture, my community, me as a black man, my family, anything. So I was very diligent in making sure that people could see the different levels and layers that Barret as a man had, especially with his relationship with Marlene and the team, and even more so with Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith. So I just wanted to make sure that there were layers that were being presented that allowed the audience to see that he just wasn't an angry black man who, like the Polygon figures, shook when he got mad, you know?" So there are tons of articles out there on the internet from way back when the game came out to even modern day talking about the characterization of Barret, some positive, some negative, in regards to like his character look and the characterization and even how the character was written in the original game, but focusing more on the portrayal of Barret in the remake. And John is doing such a phenomenal job of presenting all of those different layers that Barret has as a character. And again, everyone in this game is so well written. The localization is taking a lot of care into writing each specific character and figuring out how to best portray them with the voice actors. And it kind of seems like maybe they're allowing the voice actors to add some of their own input and personal experience into their characters. And I think that's what John is doing with a character like Barret, because you look at him on the outside and he's this very intimidating, muscular eco-terrorist that wears sunglasses at night for some reason. But when you see his interactions with his adoptive daughter Marlene, he just turns into the biggest teddy bear, the kindest protective father, and the way that he treats her is just really beautiful to see. And then when he interacts with Cloud, obviously him and Cloud do not like each other from the jump, but they get to know each other more. And by the time you get to the Sector 5 reactor, they're trusting one another. They're starting to build a foundation there that they can take into the rest of the game. And there's that moment where Cloud's hanging from, the ledge of the reactor, and Barret has this moment where he's like, "I was wrong about you. You're not who I thought you were." So there are so many layers to Barret. He's passionate, he's boisterous, he's super funny, he's caring, and he's got these moments where he can just kind of shed all of that and just be very vulnerable. And that's really hard to portray as an actor playing a character with so many different levels. And John is just knocking it out of the park. And I cannot wait to see what he does in Rebirth, because Barret has an even bigger role to play in that game when you learn more about his backstory. Up next, they ask John how does he balance all of those aspects of Barret in his portrayal. John responds by saying Barret is Barret. He's a leader. He's big, dude. He's boisterous, and he's kind of a commander. So for me to portray it, I just wanted to make sure that he didn't come off as a blowhard, as a buffoon, or as your typical drill sergeant. So yes, he is loud, and I'm loud myself, as many people in this room know. I'll walk in and I'm like, shouts, "What's up?" So doing Barret is a little bit like, let me put a bit of John in there. Put a bit of this in there. It's like a recipe for me to make sure it's balanced right. And to not repeat myself, but again, he's doing a great job of portraying all of those layers that Barret has. And he is putting himself into this game. Again, I would encourage you guys to watch interviews with John. And one of my favorite videos is actually a video that John did with Brianna White, who is the voice of Aerith, where they sat down and played a little bit of the OG FF7, and you just see how much personality they both have. But John in particular, he's adding so much of himself to Barret, and I think that's what makes him so interesting. He's so multifaceted that you don't really know what's going to come out of his mouth or how he's going to react to certain things, and he's doing such a great job of balancing those moments where Barret needs to be aggressive and loud, but also just somewhat quieter and more introspective. Up next, they ask him about some of his favorite character interactions, and we're going to jump towards the end of this paragraph, in particular because of Red 13. So John responds by saying, "But as far as everyone else goes, I love my interactions with Marlene and Cloud and Red 13. When we go back and forth with each other, that's fun. That's bro stuff." And that's a relationship I'm really excited to see, because we got a little bit of a preview of it at the end of Remake. You know, Barret and Red 13 are kind of sassy with one another because they've just been introduced to this, you know, lab rat dog. They don't know who he is, and he's talking to them and he's helping them. But the interactions between Barret and Red in particular are very comedic. It's almost kind of like a straight man, goofy guy kind of act, where Barret's kind of like the goofier guy at times and Red's the straight man, but they kind of flip-flop back and forth between those two roles. And to see that expand even more and to see them really grow to trust one another, almost like how Barret and Cloud did, I think is going to be one of the more comedic aspects of Rebirth, but one of the more maybe heartwarming aspects of that game, to just see those two characters really bond and get close to one another. Up next, they ask John about the positive reaction to the game and his portrayal as Barret. He responds by saying, 7 Remake kind of threw me, I'm not going to lie, because I've been waiting for it forever, as so many fans had. But Barret in the original, I guess, wasn't as big a character as the rest of the party. Cloud is running the show. So for me to actually see people loving this dude, it kind of threw me. I wasn't ready for it, and several people said, hey, man, you better get ready because you're doing a good job. And I was like, really? Am I though? Because as an actor, you always doubt yourself. And then people come up and are like, I love you as such and such. Okay, cool, I'm glad. They're louder than me. And again, everyone in this franchise is absolutely nailing their performances. And to speak on the, Cloud running the show, that is kind of the case with the original FF7. Everyone kind of gets their moment to shine and explore their backstory, but at the end of the day, it's almost kind of like Cloud's journey and his story. So for them to really flesh everyone out in Remake and really give everyone their proper screen time to showcase not just their personality and their growth as characters, but their backstories. And when you learn the backstories of these characters, you tend to care even more. And obviously with Barret, his backstory is super tragic, as we've discussed in previous videos. And just seeing how that shapes who he is as a person, it completely shapes his motivations, his personality, the things that he fights for. Going back to that stuff in Corel is going to be heartbreaking because of how tragic it is, and characters like Dine showing back up and his relationship with Barret. It's going to be super sad, but I'm really excited to see John's performance in that specific section of the game in particular, because he's such a great actor that I think he's just going to give it his all and really just chew up the scenery and do such an incredible job with Barret, because it's such a meaty piece of story for an actor to really just kind of bite down on, and I think he's going to knock it out of the park. Up next, they ask John about how Barret has changed from Remake to Rebirth. John responds by saying he's still loud, he's still big, he's still handsome as all get up. I ain't gonna lie, Barret's a handsome dude. When he takes the glasses off, it's like, whew, that's me? But anyway, how is he different? You saw the emotion in Remake because of the plate falling and his first time interactions. This is different because we get to see a slice of Barret that, unless you're a fan, you don't know his backstory. You don't know why Barret is who he is in Remake. So Rebirth allows you to figure that out. There's a lot of discovery for fans, and I can't wait to see all the reactions. A lot of questions will get answered. And we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier in the video, but the dynamic between Barret and his friend Deiana is so interesting because they both experience the same thing in their hometown. They both lose a part of themselves, but how they react to that experience, how they let it shape them, is what makes them so different. And it also makes that entire backstory so tragic because you see how things could have gone so wrong for Barret, but his heart and his passion, that motivation for revenge, is what kind of keeps him on a slightly more positive path. And he's a character that eventually learns that, maybe what I was doing, my thought process wasn't the right way to go about things. And he starts to change things the further you get into that story. Up next, they ask John what was his favorite scene to play in Rebirth. John says, there's a lot. I can't really say because I'm not meant to talk about stuff. Square Enix will have my NDA contract, so I can't really say my favorite scenes. But I will say my favorite things are going to this particular place and overlooking particular events that are happening that are actually stunningly beautiful. That's the only thing I can say about that scene. And then there's another scene where I get to interact with Yuffie. Susie Young is killing it, and it's actually hilarious. And then that actually allowed me to go, okay, well, here's Tifa, who I already have a relationship with. Here's Marlene, who's my baby girl, but now Yuffie's coming in. She's got the same kind of energy that I have, but she's a baby girl. She's in between Tifa and Marlene. And then any of my scenes with Cloud, man, I'm just going to say this candidly, Cody Christian came in to do voiceover stuff not knowing how big the game was. I didn't even know how big it was. But anytime I got to do scenes with Cody, I would ask, hey, has Cody recorded this yet? Can I hear what he does? Can I hear what he does so I can feel what I would say or how I would say it? It gave me groundedness and a sense of direction of how to lead the team and where we were going to go. I mean, that dude is incredible. I don't think people understand the work he puts into it. I call Cody today's Keanu Reeves because Keanu is one of the most generous guys in the world, but he's real. He'll be down on the street or on a subway train chilling with everybody else. That's how Cody is. So there's a lot to that specific question in particular. But in regards to the place that he's describing that he can't say much more about, that could be anything, man. There are so many locations in the world of FF7 that are just so beautiful that you kind of want to take a knee and just really kind of observe all of the details around you. But the whole overlooking particular events makes me kind of wonder if it is the Forgotten City. Because while it is a beautiful environment, obviously some really awful stuff goes down there. And then to see his interactions with Yuffie, I'm really excited to see. Yuffie is so feisty as a character. She gives as good as she gets. She doesn't take crap from anybody. So for her and Barret to interact, maybe butt heads a little bit, but eventually kind of like really come to love one another, I think is going to be really awesome to see take shape and maybe kind of be a little similar to his relationship with Red 13. And then of course Cody, who's doing a phenomenal job as Cloud, also seems like a genuinely great dude. I just started following him on Instagram and that dude is jacked. He was posting workout videos and his shoulders and arms are like the size of my thighs. He's in insane shape, he's very talented, and he's doing an incredible job as Cloud, and he again seems like a very stand-up guy as John describes him to be. And with that being said, we'll go ahead and end the video there. I will leave a link to this interview in the description down below. It's actually one of the longer interviews, so there's a lot of stuff we didn't talk about purely just for the sake of time, but it's a really interesting read. John has a lot to say about the other cast members and the other characters, like how Red 13 is his personal favorite character in 7. So again, that link will be in the description below if you'd like to check out the entire interview for yourself. I am Curious Corduroy. Let me know what you guys think about John's performance as Barret in this game, and what section are you most looking forward to for Barret in Rebirth. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.